Welcome back to Pixels for People, raising funds for child's play. Before we get going, I have a big donation here I wanted to share before we hit our next run. I have $200 coming in from Mittens raising funds that reads child's play with the comments. Before we get going, so I noticed these orb points at the bottom donation of here I wanted to share before we hit our next run. I have $200 coming in from Mittens that reads with the comments. So I noticed these orb points at the bottom of Twitch chat, and it's one of my options that I want to hear Super Jamoose read out is, oh yeah, it's all coming together. Thank you so much for your $200. Greatly appreciated. Folks, we're all set for our next run, and this time we have the esteemed TempestMask1000 taking us through Castlevania Legends for the Nintendo Game Boy.
TempestMask, that's a new one. I'm going to have to remember that.
TempestMask.
It's okay, my friend.
Let's go.
Let's go. Hello, friends and fellow gamers. My name is TempestMask1000, and, yeah, not much of a need for an introduction here. We're back to Castlevania. Sorry I couldn't do it a little earlier. I had a little errand to run, but I think it all worked out for the better. And with that said, here we are. We're about to do a very interesting game for the Game Boy, the last of three that came out around the same year as Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and I want you all to keep that in mind because there's a certain somebody that we'll be seeing just a little bit later. So for now, thank you all for meeting the incentive. I will now be going from any percent standard mode to 100% standard mode, which, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time that category will be run at an event by a human player. I do want to give a quick shout out, though, to Strizer86 for having provided a 100% task, which he did show off at Game Over Cancer. This was very helpful for helping this run and helping me prepare, so yeah, let's have some fun with this. Joining me on commentary was a world record holder of the any percent standard category and just a really cool person. Introduce yourself.
Hello everyone, I'm Agent Wyvern, here to help discuss this most magnificent video game for the Game Boy, and hopefully it's going to be a most interesting run indeed.
I very much hope so, because this game can be silly sometimes. We're gonna show we could probably show why for all I know. But let's get beginning, and time will start once I have confirmed standard mode. So that'll be in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Off we go. Let's do it.
Alright, so taking us in, this game features one of the first and only known female playable Belmonts of the franchise, that being Sonia Belmont. Unfortunately, this game is considered non-canon, so sadly that does mean that Sonia appearing in other Castlevania mythos has, in the future, has been more than unlikely. But for what it is and for what it's worth, she is quite remembered for this game, which is not necessarily a bad game, having come off the heels of Belmont's Revenge, but I know that when you compare this to the other two games, it certainly does better than The Adventure, even though, you know, The Adventure, it's an okay game, but it certainly had its flaws. Belmont's Revenge.
Yeah, so Sonia... Go on, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Belmont's Revenge, considered a great, and then this game, done by a different development team, but still pretty good for what it is. But yeah, I'll toss it to Wyvern. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, just Sonia Belmont's an interesting character, and that she was also sort of planned for the ill-fated Dreamcast Castlevania Resurrection, but then she was just completely made non-canon altogether. Yeah, we're doing a good job here making our way through stage 1. So Sonia has like access to, instead of sub-weapons, she gets like abilities at the end of each level. And she also has like a burning mode, which you can activate once per life, so you can technically use it multiple times per level if you take deaths, and that gives you sort of invincibility, but also interestingly makes you a lot faster as well, which is really interesting for speedrunning purposes.
Now, one of the common threads between all the Game Boy games is that your character has the ability to climb, but one thing I want to be careful of is that I do try to get as close to the bottom of the rope as possible, but if I were to hit what should be the screen transition and I'm not on the rope, the game will count that as a death. So that is always not a fun thing to happen. It doesn't happen to me a lot, but I don't want to necessarily jinx it either. So yeah, that's one thing to be considerate of, but of course holding the jump button while going down a rope does make me slide faster. Climbing up will be slower, not much we can do about that there. Yeah, no, something else to mention.
It's a concerning trend across all three sort of Game Boy Castlevania speedruns is the rope stairs, which is sort of so known in Castlevania games as being a bit of a problem, were instead replaced with ropes, which are also a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Something, though, that is pretty neat between this game and one that was also recently seen by Tinu, Super Castlevania 4, is that both players, or both playable characters, have the ability to duck and crawl. So, like with Simon in that game, I can hold down, and I can also move left and right. This is not necessarily going to be a super useful feature, except for dodging certain attacks, which I suppose were made in mind with the ducking. For instance, one particular sub-boss, and then, well, that level's boss as well, so there you go.
That's a really good comparison, actually, because I think both characters, you have a little more control, especially with Sonya, more control over the jump than is maybe associated with some of the more classic, say, NES, or even the earlier Game Boy titles. You have a lot of control over the jump, and I noticed it's definitely interesting to get used to, really. And here we go, grabbing the first of the collectible items required for the 100% run. It's interesting, it's actually all the collectible items are actually based on sub-weapons, but it confuses, I think, a lot of people, myself included, that you can't actually use the weapons, they're simply cosmetic, and the actual sub-weapons are instead magical powers.
Yeah, I think it's sort of implied that if this really was a canon game, these would be collected by Sonya, and then I guess in a future time she would make these have the magical properties that they are known to have, so they would be useful for future generations.
Ooh. Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. I never thought of it like that. That's quite clever.
But yeah, so I just collected candle meat. Not necessarily your typical wall meat, but it does the job all the same. So there are no breakable walls within this game. Technically, something that did appear in some of the Game Boy games, though, like Belmont's Revenge did have wall meat. When I first played that game, I certainly had a hard time finding it. So you know, that was certainly an issue. Just like these guys. Hang on a second. This is definitely one of my tougher runs.
This screen is really tricky. I mean, you can actually just about get there in like one cycle, but it's so obnoxious when certain screens with the flying enemies go out of control on this game. It can be quite tricky to deal with.
So you're probably wondering when I'm going to be using Burning Mode, and that's actually going to be in just a bit, because originally I did intend to use it within the first room that I climbed down to, but recently a newer world record by runner Uchi has proven that it's actually kind of useful to do it right here, because you've got these spear knights, and of course trying to pass through them can be a pain, especially when you're trying to manage your health. So instead, by using this invincibility here, I realized, hey, this actually does work a whole lot better! And then that just happened. Okay, so
the speed boost you get there from that burning ability can be difficult to control at times. Like, you can often overshoot sort of the target. It's very easy to do.
Yeah, just a little unfortunate, but as mentioned, I do get it back, and also all of my health, so, you know, very unexpected, and that does mean there's going to be probably a little bit of chaos ahead, but no big deal, because I do usually, whenever I submit this to events, I usually keep that in mind with my estimate, and because we are doing the 100% category, the estimate is a little bit expanded, or at least it should be. So it's with that safety in mind that we could have a faster run, or things could go just a little bit longer. One of the things I was trying to do, though, was manage my heart count, because in this game, unlike other Classicvanias, your heart count does not go down at the end of a boss fight, so it's with this in mind that our abilities will be very useful if I collect as much as I can. A little more on that later, though.
It's also quite useful. It's also quite useful that unlike a lot of other Castlevanias, you don't lose any of your sub-weapons, or in this game, sort of magical power-ups when you die. So it's luckily it makes backups and stuff considerably nicer.
I was trying to go a little risky there. I'm just going to burning mode this so that I don't die. Okay.
Using the iframes well there as well to deal with the
there
extra
we go.
attacks.
I thought he was going to go left. I kind of forget about his movement sometimes. That was the creature's bat. I like to call him Batman. Some people like to call him Man-Bat. You know, it kind of makes sense.
Just as that little charge attack and can be Give me hit down there. And now we move on to level 2, and we should be seeing the first item here to stop time. Oh, yeah, there we go. Just about to stop the skull.
And there we go. So, yeah, in case you're wondering, hey, why am I looking at the stopwatch? Well, yeah, that's what the wind ability does here. So, these soul weapons are mostly abilities of their own, except for the first one you get. The wind one is purely the stopwatch. It's basically the, it's like, sort of like given a fresh coat of paint, different identity, same concept, and for each moment I stop time, it will cost me 5 hearts to use. It is a very helpful ability for manipulating enemies, especially when I want to get by a certain area fast. Other than that, though, I was originally hoping to keep the 80 plus hearts that I had, but then the slippery moment happened, so you know, it is not much I can do about that except just try to play a little carefully. Now, this is a Classicvania game, so you can imagine that there's not too much you can do aside from the usual controls of a Classicvania game, but also keeping burning mode in mind. Now, burning mode in this level, that's the only change of when I use burning mode will apply to what I did in the first level, and then what I will be doing in the final level. I'm not sure, though, if in 100% I will want to use it sooner in the third level, but preferably keeping it intact until I get to the boss is something I do, because, well, the third level boss is not all that hard. It's just, he's a familiar face from Castlevania lore that I don't necessarily want him to have his way, per se. I'm speaking
level 3 in this game is kind of infamous, really. It's the one that's kind of difficult to speed up a lot, and it's really awkward when things go off the rails because it's a mostly vertical level. Speaking of vertical, though, we're going to go and collect our second sort of collectible sub-item here, which I believe is the clock, interestingly.
So, you just saw me collect a 1-up there. 1-ups are also located in candles, and the interesting thing is I do believe they respawn, even if you die. So, you know, the thing about this game, though, in game overs is that it's not all that punishing as you might think. So, if I were to game over, I can actually continue from the exact checkpoint that I would have been at if I died normally. Compare this to what the other games did, where Adventure was a lot more like you start from all the way at the beginning, I think, and then Belmont's Revenge was all about having a halfway point checkpoint. So this is like even more convenient, and probably the most convenient checkpoint system I've ever encountered in any Castlevania game.
Yeah, I prefer, honestly, just being a bit more lenient and just here's the obstacle, here's the problem, try and solve it, rather than solve everything you've already done repeatedly.
So here we have the Armored Knights, and Wyvern, if you'd like to explain those.
Yeah, so the Armored Knights are interesting. You noticed that there were some spikes before the door, and so we couldn't go near them. So we have to actually just go down the screen and kill an Armored Knight, which for some magical, illogical reason then removes the spikes from our way to the door. Not quite sure why that's how it works, or what magical connection they may have. But we did actually, I remember a few of us tried investigating it to see if you could damage boost to that door early without killing the knight, and you can, but it doesn't do anything.
I was going to say,
it doesn't open.
I could only imagine.
Yeah, it doesn't open until those knights are gone.
Yeah. Well, hey, it's always good to practice that sort of thing. You know, experiment for the sake of science. But
yeah, you never know, especially in games that maybe haven't been, completely investigated or completely. I mean, even in ones that have, though, like even Castlevania 1 in the last year has changed dramatically thanks to massive discovery. So you never know what sort of big sort of trick or glitch could be around the corner, really, from just sort of trying stuff.
All right, so I'm gonna use one more wind right there. And then, I don't think I'll need the health per se, but I think it drops anyway. Yeah, okay, 1 point of health is not that bad, though, really. Especially when we're coming up to this big fella in level 2.
The big zombie dragon.
Yeah, big zombie dragon. So y'all are familiar with zombie dragons in certain Castlevania games, and this one did one too. I'm actually gonna... Yeah, I didn't want to use the stopwatch there. Listen to me speak.
I'm very familiar with zombie dragons. We exchange Christmas cards.
Well, now, I imagine the ones you know are a lot kinder than this one. Alright, so this guy likes to bob his head and shoot fireballs in any certain directions. I try to get the whip going as many times as possible. I prefer him not to do a lot of low shots, because those are the hardest for me to avoid. They're not unavoidable, but, you know, health management, kind of a thing in a game like this. Yeah, I'm just gonna see if he decides.
Unfortunately, the wind ability doesn't work on the boss. That'd be great if it did, because you could just sort of freeze his head really low and just really hit him down quickly. And excellently done there. Got through the boss. Lovely.
I am surprised that it even took one shot of the fireball to finish him off. That's kind of funny. All right.
Well, we've got our second magical power now, the healing in level 3. This doesn't often come into play, but can be nice, a nice sort of backup as well if needed. It is also can be used later in the run as well. It just costs a lot of hearts. 20 hearts, I think, the healing, if I remember correctly. It's quite significant.
Yeah, at least 20. The funny thing too about this is that the element is water or ice, depending on which version of the game you are playing. So one of the manuals reads it as water, the other is ice. I can't remember if water is the English version, but I'm going to assume it is.
Interesting, because I think the image for it's like bubbles, so I always just kind of assumed it was some magical water healing or something.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how that's like one of the only like localization differences that I can really. Oops. Well, I guess we're going invincible now.
Yeah, I mean, it's the issue with this level in general is that because it's so vertical, we can't really make the use of the burning ability as much as we'd really like. There's a couple of different areas people have tried, and some of it maybe shows potential, but it's just it's just a bit of an awkward level trying to get off the ropes while especially the flying enemies can be really awkward, and it's one of those levels that it's not great.
Yeah. Alright, so now we're coming up to our first of the mini-bosses in the game, and I don't necessarily know this guy's name. I imagine it's a gargoyle, though. But, yeah.
I always thought it was the dragon, actually. Let me think, it was...
I mean, a gargoyle dragon or something like that, but whichever the case.
Well, apparently, it's a flying wolf, according to the Castlevania wiki. Today I learned.
Okay, I was not expecting to hear that one. Oh, thank you, Wiki.
Yeah.
Alright, so... I am pretty close to the next item location. This one's a bit of a stretch, but it's also an interesting one as well, because I'm not supposed to go left if I want to keep playing the game. However, our next collectible is located within... I believe it's this upcoming tower, because I can't remember if there were two, but I'm pretty sure it's the first one you'll find.
Yeah, I think so. It's this is the one for the... I don't know if it's supposed to be the dagger sub-weapon, but it looks more like a sword to me.
Yeah.
So this is... Yeah, it's interesting. And I think the only Castlevania game I remember where a Belmont uses a sword is Haunted Castle, so you never know, maybe Haunted Castle is the sequel. Oh dear.
I always did imagine what Castlevania Legends timeline would be like. Hang on, I've got to play it a little careful there. I always did imagine what a timeline following the Legends lore would be like, and I did imagine Haunted Castle would be one of them. Like, it would take place after one of the other Simon Belmont games, so basically... Actually, that's the funny part. I imagine Super Castlevania 4 would be in such a timeline, because it's one of those things where it's canon, but at the same time it's not. It was like one of those weird things, and so I was like, well, hey, the guy does refer to Simon as a Dompier, so I guess it kind of lines up, which I won't explain why I just said that yet, but keep it in mind, because there's a very special treat that beating the game 100% does give. So, let's just say...
That's probably the main reason it was made non-canon.
I imagine that's one of them, because the person that did declare this game non-canon was, of course, Koji Igarashi. So, yeah. Alright, I'm gonna stop time here.
I'm gonna go on one of the first walking gears.
That did not quite work. I'm gonna heal, though, because I was planning on doing that sooner or later. Just a little on the early side, but no big deal. Now, there is one little snag with the soul weapon that heals you. You can use it anytime you want, but you can also accidentally use it at full health, and that costs you your hearts regardless. So I want to avoid that at all costs, and that's actually one of the reasons why I immediately switch out my sub-weapon the moment that I start this level. Because you get your soul weapon, and it's automatically equipped, but then you gotta press select when you're standing still to go into that menu. Oh right, I'm supposed to go right.
Yeah, I remember from running it trying to change that menu quickly, and I'd often make all sorts of mistakes and still stick with the healing by accident and not actually change anything. Interesting that these moving gears that were on here. I don't know, I can't remember if it's multiple, but I've seen at least one that just breaks sometimes from run to run. Like it literally will not move up; it just sort of is stood there chilling out. And I've never quite understood why that happened. Yeah, it's. I can't remember if it's in one of the rooms. It might be. It's this room, I believe. I think it's that one sort of moving up there, or maybe I don't know. It's just strange. It just will sometimes not move. And
is it like the loading?
To continue. Possibly. It's hard to tell. It stays there, and luckily it doesn't actually kill the run because you can still jump from it. Luckily, the jump to the next bit's not that large, but. Just interesting. That's, for example, if this one here in this room, if this one broke, you'd probably start screaming. I mean, I certainly would.
Yeah, thank God that you can return to earlier rooms, so I guess that's one benefit of the rope system. Oop, it was a little too late to get on that rope, so I did get a bit of knockback. I think, though, we are... Yeah, so that's also one of the things about this game that always confused me. Like, going up into this room, and I was always thinking, okay, boss time. Nope, not yet. Which, actually, that's going to be interesting, too.
I actually thought it was as well.
Yeah, so... We should now be coming up to the boss chamber, and because I used up my burning mode, that does take away a little bit of safety, but that's okay. Say hello to the Grim Reaper, also known as Death.
He's back again and he's ready for business.
He's very simple, though. He just bounces from one side of the room, and then swinging his scythe, he then tosses these lesser sickles. Not on that of his first Castlevania fight, when you think about it. Alright, that was pretty good.
So burning can help speed it up a little bit, but yeah, I mean, even without burning, that was a really, really good fight. And
absolutely.
So Death says goodbye, and we say goodbye to his amazing coat, actually. I'm quite fond of that coat he was wearing, I'm not going to lie.
I gotta say, though, it's always nice to see a clock level. You can't have a Castlevania game without one.
That is true, although some people might wish we did.
That is true. I would like to see a little bit of variety if it ever comes back, but I can imagine it would be like a clock museum. You gotta have time involved somehow. I can only imagine Konami would hate to see anything otherwise.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna let this guy charge.
Interesting. It's these massive spike pits. These spikes do so much damage as well, so you really don't want to sit on them. And that was really unfortunate as well. Oh,
so that's I used burning mode there as a backup. So that was technically intended if I did fall down there. Not what I wanted, but the good news about running at 100% actually is that I am going to do a death warp, so it'll assure that I do have burning mode back at my disposal. We'll see how well it works out, though, because other than that...
Yeah, level 4 is a really good level for it as well. Level 4 really benefits from as much burning as possible because of these long, open corridors with a lot of opportunities for damage, so just having both that invincibility and that really fast movement is so helpful on this level.
This level also has a very familiar mini-boss coming right now. Say hello to Medusa.
Hello, Medusa. Ooh, got a sword in this one as well.
Now, you might have noticed right there that when I just hit her and she was undergoing her iframes, I actually passed through her a bit, and that's because whenever you attack a boss and it's undergoing the iframes, you're not taking damage until their hitboxes are active again. Now, I am a little low on health.
If anyone's playing this casually, there is a safe spot for Medusa. If you just literally crouch at the right, she sort of charges towards you with her sword, and then she sort of just moves away and gets up and
I would have done that.
Again, so.
I would have done that, but I wanted to play a little risky there. Up.
Yeah,
that's a love tap.
Quite well, actually.
Well, like I said, I gotta undergo a death warp anyway, so I was gonna lose all those hearts at some point or another.
Yes. I was on a delay though. I wasn't trying to be sarcastic.
Oh no, I don't. I totally get that.
Making our way through the nights again though. These are really annoying enemies as well, especially in like level 5. They just the random charge they do, like super quick charge. I'm never always completely sure when they're about to do it. It makes for quite an awkward sort of hit we can sometimes end up taking.
By the way, you also saw that when Medusa died, her head was still there and just flew away. Well, as I always like to make mention of that, a good friend, a runner by the name of Ashima, you might know the guy, is once said to me, "Oh, so that's why we have to deal with Medusa heads. Sonia's to blame."
Oh my goodness, that never even remotely crossed my mind. But that's so right. Oh my goodness, I feel like I've just discovered something.
Hey, how do you think I felt?
Value. This is the mystery is solved. At long last. How many Medusas would have to be destroyed though for that many heads, considering how many there are across
Well, there was
all the
only
games?
the one. There was the original Medusa, so I imagine there was some kind of like supernatural cloning. Who knows?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's how the Medusa boss happens in CD1, I guess, was the
There we
plan.
go.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
A little trouble from the bats and the knockback. Yeah, if it wasn't obvious, actually, let me go ahead to equip wind. Okay, there we go. That's a little bit better.
Yeah, you can see your collection as well in that menu of which items you picked up. And I remember when I sort of first played this, I was so confused. Like I was frantically googling, trying to figure out how do I use the axe, how do I use the stopwatch and the dagger. But
Oh, if
unfortunately,
only.
they are just for show.
Okay.
I feel like this game would benefit from especially like an axe sub-weapon for a lot of these flying enemies. Honestly, it'd be quite nice.
So I imagine that this room was like some sort of a. Oh wait, actually, that's not the death abuse I wanted to tell. Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, at least we get to try again. So yay for round 2. So what I was really supposed to do was let my health drop to 0 once I collected the collectible item. My mind's running a mile a minute right now.
Yeah, it's. Oh, up we go. These candles all those candles all spawn enemies, I believe, right? It's
Yeah, the
just
white
really
ones.
Random.
Normally,
Yeah,
you don't want to go
also
for those.
cause, like.
Sorry, you go ahead.
You go ahead, sorry. Yeah.
I was just going to mention was you might have seen some white candles in some of the earlier levels, like level 1 particularly. I avoided that at all costs because those activate trap rooms, and those if it wasn't obvious, those waste a lot of time. You do not want to bother with those whatsoever.
Yeah, it's really strange. It's an odd inclusion to the game, really. Like they have no reward for going in them. They're literally just there to ruin your day, and yeah, it's a bit unusual because like they last a while as well, so it's really difficult to not like to not die there. And there's no healing, there's nothing afterwards that are of any help. So that was really good. They picked up the holy water and then taking the death.
And because you got to see me at 0 lives, you actually saw a little bit of anime rendering Dracula for the game over screen. It's actually really nice artwork. I applaud the artist responsible for that one.
Yeah, the pixel art's not bad in this. I mean, it's a late Game Boy title, but it's certainly perfectly passable.
So I was okay. So when I was originally watching Streiser's task. Oh, well, I didn't mean to use it now, but you know what? This would be a good opportunity to use it anyway.
Yeah, I believe this is where I used to use it. It works out quite well. I think it's actually faster to use it here and then just fight the boss normally. Since it's really such a long corridor of spikes and stuff in it.
Yeah, well, I just got to be a little bit careful of my health, which we'll see how that all plays out. So, ladies and gentlemen, flying all the way from Transylvania, here's Alucard.
Hey, welcome in, Mr. Alucard. Yeah, so
Yeah, like I said,
Alucard sort of and Sonia are sort of supposed to be a couple in this game, and I'm never quite certain why they fight. It's supposed to be that Alucard doesn't want you to fight his father, and he wants to do it, so he's trying to protect you, and his way of protecting you is hitting you on the head with a sword.
yeah. And, well, wouldn't you know it, the idea is we're supposed to beat him anyway. But it's kind of, I don't know, it's silly writing, cheesy dialogue too, which of course you can skip by pressing the start button, which is what I did. And, yeah, I mean, it's funny how certain Game Boy games don't let you skip dialogue, not even Game Boy Color games for that matter. Like, my first speed game, Mega Man Extreme 2, I certainly could imagine that we would have a lot of time saving to do if we could just go past the dialogue without having to scroll the text. But here's Castlevania Legends, the last Castlevania game for the Game Boy, and you can just do that no problem. Sad.
Yeah. Whatever works, I suppose. So here comes Alucard again. Oh. It's interesting because this game was released the same year as Symphony of the Night.
Which is what I was about to bring up, yeah. I did mention it at the beginning, and it's funny that they just decide to include his design from that game into here with this very appearance. Alright, one more hit.
I actually had no idea he could turn into a bat like that. That's quite interesting.
Yeah, it's not a very common pattern or attack for him to do, but his main attacks are using the sword, the fireball, and then the bat transformation. That's about it.
Yeah. And then it's sort of supposed to be an emotional scene there of Alucard saying, "Sonia, my love, goodbye," and something. It's like, well, why did we fight in the first place?
Yeah.
It's completely pointless. Just team up and go and defeat Dracula and go home for a cup of tea or something.
Yeah, you would think that, but alas, this is a Castlevania game. Leon Belmont wouldn't have his super-powered whip if his... Wait, that'd be a spoiler alert. I should probably keep that shut.
I don't know. I feel like Castlevania, the whole world building and the mythos and stuff of all the games is incredible. I often find some of the individual telling of the stories, especially in like some of the Metroidvania games, is a little bit suspect.
Very sus. But... okay, so we're now in what would be the final level if this was any percent, but because we are doing 100%, we're actually going into a little something special that I don't usually get to show off. Now, if only I could avoid the stalagmite. Thank you.
Yeah, the hitboxes of those spikes is just ridiculous. Like, especially on some of them, like that. What was it? The flying wolf. I think we've learned it's called earlier. That has a massive hitbox as well. That doesn't quite make sense. It's some of the hitboxes. I mean, to be fair, that's a trait across I think all 3 Game Boy games. Is the hitboxes are a little bit questionable at times. But yeah, we are going to head towards that secret level to get the last item for 100%. But it's a secret. Don't tell anyone. I actually had no idea this level even existed for like a whole 2 years.
Wow, that's actually a long time. The reason that I learned about it was because I obviously was curious about what made this game such an interesting case. And, well, of course, that level had something to do with it. And I wasn't supposed to die there. Well, that's fine. Like I said, very generous continue system. Just right back here, no problem. So... yeah,
that's really good, actually. I really quite like how the game's done that, honestly.
Definitely not my smoothest run. I'm going to be very obvious there. But, and hey man, that's just a Castlevania game for you sometimes. Sometimes you smooth, sometimes you struggle.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. All the fishermen bouncing around. I quite like the fisherman design in this game.
Oh man!
Oh my goodness, that was. I just got that after the delay, the grab on the rope. That was very scary, but well done indeed.
Yeah, but I do agree. The fishermen have some pretty nice art going for them. So now we're going at least a couple rooms closer to this level's mini-boss, which I also actually think is technically the last mini-boss of the entire game. So we'll be seeing our friend the Minotaur, and I don't recall if he's shown up in other classic Vanias or Castlevanias, but I do believe that is the case. Whatever.
Yes, he was in Rondo of Blood, and also Dracula X as well.
That would make sense.
You're annoying in both of them as well.
Well, here he's a lot simpler. All he does is just jump from one section to the next, and he just tries to stay within that position while also trying to follow Sonia. So we're going to see him do that right now, and I'm just going to whip him a lot to tell him, hey, thank you for your service, but no, I need to proceed.
His hitbox is annoying as well. It's sometimes as you're trying to move to the next bit, he somehow still manages to hit you.
Oh, now he's doing an arm pump. Wow. That's one way he can waste time.
Seen that.
Yeah,
he's having it dancing.
Yeah, it's just another rare instance. So I'm gonna try and be careful because having a pint of health can be a bit. But I will use, I'll use burning mode then because that actually is not a bad idea. So here's how we're going to do this. There's a white candle that I actually do want to hit for once, and what that's going to do is it's going to open up the floor in the room to the right. Then I want to fall through that floor, and once I do so, we will then load into secret level 6, and it'll be my objective to then collect that item, defeat the boss, and then I'll be spawned back to here. So in the meantime, I think this would be a wonderful opportunity to pass the floor to Super Jamoose, and if you got any donations or announcements to read, go ahead, my friend.
My pleasure, Tempest. I do have a donation here, $20 coming in from Retro Dismas, that reads, "Way to go, Tempest Mask, and great job commentating to my favorite lamb-loving streamer, Agent Wyvern."
Thank you, Retro Dismas. Awesome Castlevania runner and streamer himself as well. As we enter level 6. Now this is an interesting one. I actually quite like the music of this stage as well. But it's not too bad of a stage, I think, compared to some of the others. But it's I shouldn't say that in the middle of a run. That always leads to commentators' curses. But it's interesting design. I think it's meant to be like a dungeon based on all these skeletons who've been sort of handcuffed to the wall here, which is a little bit unfortunate for them.
Yeah, unfortunately, I took a bit of a unnecessary detour seeing that myself just now. I will say this is probably the room that I am the least experienced in, because, you know, I am mostly, of course, by trade, more familiar with the any percent routing. So it's not to say that I haven't played this level quite a few times, it's one of those things where your memory is just trying to wake up just a little. But
I've never played this level.
Oh, you haven't?
No, I've seen all the tasks and the videos of it. And I'm like, oh, this looks cool, and then I'm like, I'm good. I don't want to go back to level 5. Level 5 scares me.
I mean, it doesn't put you at the very beginning though, so that's the nice thing here.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna switch to the soul weapon that we got from level 3, the fire weapon, and I'm just gonna use it like that. So at a cost of 5 hearts, it causes 1 damage to everything within the room. Those little fireball spirits right there are like gonna die to anything that you throw at them. So because that room requires you to survive all those 2 waves of fireballs while standing entirely still, I just removed that from the equation. And yeah, another shout out to Strizer for that strat, thanks to the TAS.
Yeah, that's really cool. I never even noticed that. I think that's something when it's difficult watching a task. Sometimes like the inputs are so quick that you can't even tell like something's actually happened. But yeah, that's really a cool strat indeed. So we collect the last item here, which I think is the cross. Yes, there we go. We have the cross of most amazingness.
And then all that's left to do is take care of this level's boss, the Executioner, before we then go back to level 5. And I will be sure to use my burning mode during that fight, because the nice thing is that when this level is considered complete, that just means all that there's left to do is go back to level 5, and then the game will consider it to be replenished once again. So yeah, like I said, this may be challenging in certain places. This game might seem daunting because I've certainly proven that making mistakes can be a bit costly, but at the end of the day is still probably one of the most generous Castlevania games I've seen, right next to Castlevania The Adventure Rebirth. And that was the wrong room entirely. Why did I think I needed to go there? Oh well. Alright, hang on.
Oh, it's a cool room to see, though. It's interesting to see the different ways you can go in this game. It is interesting, all the different aspects to it that you don't always get to see, which is kind of cool, because I don't think I've ever seen that room before.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I have at least once, but only that one time. Okay, now we're coming up to the Executioner. Maybe just a couple more rooms, and...
Where are all those fishmen coming from? They're just sort of appearing from stone.
That is a good question. So... I'm just going to explain the boss right now. The Executioner is going to go from one platform to the next, and I want to be very mindful of that. Essentially, he's not unlike the Minotaur in that regard, but there will be some spike traps on the floor, so I do want to be considerate of the damage that I could take from it. And, well, here we go. So, without further ado, let's say hello.
Good luck.
And burning mode activate. I probably didn't need to use that heal after all. I just wanted to be very considerate of dying, because at this rate, dying at this point would be kind of inconvenient. Yeah, so heal proven useful after all.
Yeah, it just uses the same strategy Alucard did. Ooh.
Oh no, I don't have an extra. No, it doesn't work on him either. This is a bit of a predicament. Oh, he's...
Uh-oh.
Yep, okay. Well, hey, I got burning mode again. We're gonna try this one more time. Now, I will say this. The warp location to level 5 will bring us back to the mid-room, where we had just defeated the Minotaur. So it'll be a straight jaunt to Dracula after the fact, and, yeah. I do want to...
Yeah, the game sort of links together quite well.
Okay, so if I just keep doing this, hopefully that should be enough. There we go. How come you didn't die that fast, man? Oh, I think I know why, though. It must have been the fireballs. I keep forgetting to mention that the fireballs obviously do lesser damage than the level 2 whip itself. So that must have been what threw me off in that fight. Very sorry.
Yeah,
bit of a rookie mistake
annoying,
there.
really. I wish almost the damage could overlap. I mean, maybe it's partly sort of a technical issue or the enemy iframes and stuff, but it almost sometimes feels like that upgrade feels like a downgrade at times.
Yeah. It is what it is, though. It's really good for long range, especially for safety when you need it most. Other than that, though, we are back here at level 5, and like I said, just a strong jaunt up to Dracula's chamber. Now, we'll just get the boss out of the way. We'll explain that really quickly so that I won't have to have my mind wander too much. The general gist is that he is within a set pattern of locations, and when he completes a cycle, it's back to basic position 1. But he will shoot fireballs after a little while after he appears, so I want to be very mindful of that. And then Phase 2 will be similar. He will turn into a giant monstrous transformation where his head will be the only thing that moves, and it will shoot omnidirectional fireballs. I'm going to do a little trick with burning mode for that particular portion. But right now, I do want to get enough hearts just so that I can... Actually, no, I will show off the new soul weapon that I got, though. This is magic. It's like fire, except it completely vanishes the enemies, and it's absolutely... For 5 hearts, it's a lot more effective than fire itself. So, funny that. And,
oh my goodness, that's overpowered. We need that nerfing. What on earth? I didn't even know it did that.
Yeah, no, imagine my surprise when I first saw it. Okay, so I do imagine I am running just a little over the estimate at the moment, but we're gonna try and make this work. If not, though, then feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I just want to say right away that I am very grateful to be back representing Pixels for People once again. For those that don't know, I had the pleasure of being a part of the first one, so I do very much want to thank Carter and folks for having me back. It's been nothing short of cool getting to show off a game that doesn't get a lot of attention, because unfortunately Legends does not have representation in any of the anniversary collections, which is a shame because it does make it something of a rare game to get for that very reason. So if you want to play it yourself, definitely nothing wrong with considering emulation, but other than that, I'm sure that somewhere is a Game Boy cartridge for you to get, so definitely consider it. I had fun with it, I've had fun with it, and I'm sure you can too.
Yeah, it's a really interesting game, especially from a speedrun perspective. There's a lot more sort of potential with it, I would say. It's a really like interesting mechanics within it that make it quite sort of unique, sort of Castlevania wise. So it's definitely worth sort of another look if you haven't played it before. The Dracula fight is going to be really interesting because, as you said, it does this sort of fireball projectile attack in a very similar manner to Belmont's Revenge, actually. But I feel like this one's a little bit more fair about it. Belmont's Revenge's Dracula fight's a little bit more nonsense.
Trust me, I had to make use of the Anniversary Collection's save feature in order to tolerate that. And I am not afraid to admit it.
Yeah, that's completely fair.
Alright, let's see if I can just play this a little bit calmly. Okay, that's not too bad. So, I'm not too concerned, because while Alucard's weapon, being the cheapest soul weapon, only 1 heart apiece, is also good for long-range projectiles, this is the real meat of things, so here we go. Time will be on the
phase 1 defeat.
Time will be on defeat. Okay, please let this work. Okay, not quite there just yet, but I imagine it will be pretty close. That's another... Yeah, this is another strategy or strat that I adapted from the task. Okay, and I think we are just about at... Hold on. Time!
Hey, GG, well played. Nicely done.
Woo! Let's go! I'm just gonna skip the dialogue and we're gonna get to the credits, because as a way of saying thank you all for meeting the donation, we're gonna show you what exactly changes in the ending right away. And now I'm gonna finally hydrate. So let's get this going as quickly as we possibly can. But Agent Wyvern, thank you so much for joining me again. This was such a pleasure.
Pleasure to be here. Amazing run indeed. So yeah, the 100%. Usually the credits here end after this sort of first paragraph, and you just go to sort of very basic on a basic sort of background credits. But in 100%, they do change it a little bit, which is a nice reward, I suppose. Although the story implications probably meant that this game has never been considered or thought of ever again by Konami.
So here's the first difference. Sonya lets down her long hair out of the long braid that it is, and then there's this extra little passage right here. There's going to be one more bit that'll be coming up in just a little while, but for the time being, Agent Wyvern, where can these wonderful people find you?
Usually screaming somewhere, but no, just twitch.tv/Agent Wyvern.
Wonderful. Oh yeah, this game likes to show your hit score, by the way. Funny little thing. So technically the game is scoring you, but it's not the most necessary. I mean, I don't even know how high a score you can get within reason, but I mean, there's a clock, so, you know, it does try to get things going. But yeah, while the staff credits are playing, as for me, I'm just gonna say right now that my Twitch is TempestMask1000, my YouTube under the same name. If you want to follow my Twitter, which is where I would post stream alerts, because I do not have a static schedule, you can check out at @It'sTempestSteve. And yeah, if you guys want to give a Castlevania game a shot, we have a speedrunning community that you can find a link to at any of the leaderboards. So definitely come check us out. We always appreciate new faces. I'm sure we'd be glad to get anybody learning just about whatever we can. And yeah, let's see. There should be not too much else. If we do gotta fast forward though right away, then I understand. But we'll just say it flat out. There's gonna be there would be a cut scene where you're gonna see Sonya holding an infant, and I think some have assumed that to be Trevor Belmont, and then it's also assumed that the kid is actually hers in Alucard's, which which implies that Simon and everyone and the Belmonts are part Dhampir. And it's so funny because I mentioned I could imagine Super Castlevania 4 taking place after this, because the guide low-key mentions Simon as a Dhampir. I don't know, it's silly, but I think this is definitely a good reason for Iga to say, I'm not going to try this. So it is what it is.
Nah, mate, I'm not fitting this in the timeline. You can...
Yeah. Well, hey, thank you again to Carter and everyone for having us. Enjoy the rest of the event. Let's keep raising money for the kids. Jamoose, it was such a pleasure to have you as my host. Thank you so much, man.
Tempest, it's always good to hear from you again, fam, and thank you so very, very much for the run. And in fact, we did have one more donation that came in while you were combating with Vlad Dracula Tepish. It comes in from D&D Nat21, $25, that reads, "Can't miss donating during the CV block, Castlevania block. Thank you, everyone, for supporting this incredible event. Pixelful people, hype."
Hype! All right, everybody. That's going to be it for me. Until we next meet, I wish you all a wonderful day, afternoon, evening, or whatever time it is, wherever you are, with peace and love. Ciao, amici.